Thank you today for joining us for our first episode in our Cyber Uppercut series. We're going to be talking mostly around cyber resilience and where Acronis fits in within the market. So I guess we better get kind of the conversation started. Working with Acronis over the last 6 years as a vendor, you've kind of grown and moved away from, that licensing cyber backup model and moved really into a full cyber kind of solution. Where was the kind of biggest change? Where was the first big step that you saw Acronis becoming this? And where do you see yourself within the market when it comes to a cyber vendor?
Great question. And first, thanks for having us on. So I think it's been, how would you put it? A very accelerated, gradual change, if you could have those two things there. Obviously, Acronis probably maybe up until about 2-3 years ago was essentially the backup company.
Yeah.
And but what we've seen is we've developed our own solutions in-house in regards to things like cyber, whether it be endpoint detection and response, XDR, even with our own MDR these days as well, RMM, and then partnered effectively where necessary. But the key thing around that whole piece is that we haven't changed the fact that it's all through that same single console. So, I think the problem is, well, not the problem, but I think one of the things is that it's crept up on people. It's probably some of our best kept secrets are the additional services that we can provide and deliver to help aid MSPs in providing that quality of service. What we've decided to do as a business is figure out how can we kind of protect, deliver, and be part of all of our partners' delivery process in all elements to make their lives simpler.
Yeah. I think from my experience, working with Acronis, you're still known as that backup vendor. Like if you talk to anyone, that is the first thing they think is Acronis is a backup vendor. Are you starting to see now, within the conversations that you're having in your role, that's starting to shift, that's starting to change? Like you've spoken about a lot of kind of, best kept secrets are that side of things. Would you say now you're becoming more known for everything else as well as the backup, or is it still predominantly the backup is the kind of in when you're speaking to customers?
Well, as the security guy, it hurts me to hear you say that we're still the backup vendor, but I do get that. It's a shift that is happening.
Yeah.
Right. It is. There's no doubt, and there's no getting away from the fact that we have backup roots.
Yeah.
Right. It's where we've come from. It's the heritage of the business, and it's really important backup because, like, it is an essential part of any effective IT kind of delivery for an MSP or part of basic hygiene.
Yeah.
Looking at managing a solution stack, and on that, it's really cool as well because it becomes the foundation. Like, so backup itself is, it's been around for 100 years, right? I was chatting to some colleagues the other day about tape, tape.
I haven't had tape in a very long time.
But, it's now really the foundation for business continuity, disaster recovery, real critical business requirements these days. But we are starting to see people moving more towards looking at the wider portfolio of solutions, because they can sit back and see, I call it the single glass of pain, but some people don't quite like it. So in the single pane of glass, having that ability to just kind of go, right, what's going on, what's happening, maybe a bit of workflow, maybe a bit of AI in there to kind of take away the boring, repeatable tasks to make things happen a bit faster, but consolidating that stuff to make it a smoother delivery, making it simpler.
Yeah. No, I have found, I would say, obviously in the market, there is still that kind of massive knowledge gap, right, when it comes to cybersecurity. And I think having something like Acronis takes a lot of that away. Like you can sell it to a 2-man band, and they can manage it all from that one single pane of glass. But equally, you can have it, you see it across massive MSPs who, don't necessarily have that knowledge. I would say, I'm seeing it within Acronis as well. That is changing as well. I think it's always been that journey you take them on from backup across the full solution stack. I see more now Acronis as a platform, right? It's different to pretty much, because everyone is kind of dabbling in a bit of doing quite a lot of things when it comes to vendors these days. But I think Acronis, I look at it more as a platform that you manage and have all these other options to basically cut down, on the actual manpower that's going into it. So it's a lot of money saving. It's a lot of very simplistic to use. And that doesn't mean the product and the knowledge and the solution isn't very effective at what it does. I think that's the big thing. You get a lot of vendors that kind of buy outside, where, like you said earlier, Acronis themselves develop a lot of this. There's very few that you have kind of brought and just added it on top. It's very integrated across the whole platform, which I think is a massive, massive key.
Yeah, and just to kind of pick up on that, like, you do see a lot of other vendors out there and they're acquiring, right?
Yeah.
It's a big thing. Everyone's acquiring. If you're not acquiring, you're probably being bought type environment that the IT industry is in. And having that ability of not trying to force that square peg into either a square hole that's not quite the right size or a round hole.
Yeah.
And having that stuff all purpose built, homegrown, built from the ground up, all of those types of phrases just gives that kind of experience for the MSP, for the provider, whatever, whoever's managing it, to just make it work.
Yeah.
To just, we talk about single click recovery. Absolutely. And, our backup is rock solid.
Yeah.
Our endpoint security, our EDR, and all of those bits and pieces. Like, I've gone on a handful of different projects where we've swapped out probably vendors that are specific in that endpoint, and people have gone, "Oh, this has picked up stuff that we didn't, like the other one didn't realize," And then even then, just adding that RMM piece there to help with the kind of the recovery piece in the event of something going on, or a bit of support. And like, you look at it from that perspective, and Acronis then does become greater than the sum of its individual parts as an overall solution, right? Yeah, you can still have it a la carte and you can still pick and choose what you want. But if you get if you do choose to eat more of what's being on offer there are greater benefits that can be realized.
I think the people or the customers that buy into it fully are the ones who are getting the best benefits out of Acronis. Like, you do see it. I have a very vast range of customers, from just doing the backup to, using the product in a full, its full capacity, and you see the big difference. They might, certain customers might be spending more, but it doesn't mean that they're getting the full benefits of it. And I think you do find that now, it's not necessarily having the best in class, but as you said, the sum of all of its parts is, and you see it with the awards that you win, the companies that you sell into. It is something that, 6 years ago I wouldn't have never seen Acronis here. Like, it's absolutely incredible. I took Acronis on, and honestly, it was just the best thing they did was Microsoft 365 backup. And now it's over a 6-year period, I've never seen a cyber company just jump that much.
And I think, we talk about cyber events, and being a security guy, I'm always going to look at stuff through that security lens, right? I'm one of those people that gets really excited by terrible things happening to people. I find it really interesting. But just because a bad event happens, like a cyber incident, bit of malware, causes downtime, impacts availability, and all those things, it doesn't mean it has to be a bad experience for the end user, right? So by having these, the multiple services, first getting picked up by EDR and isolating and containing everything, and the remote management monitoring, going, all right, now let's gain access to it. Let's do a vulnerability scan to figure out maybe how this thing could have potentially come through. Okay, well, let's do a restore from the backup, all done through the same agent. Oh, let's interrogate the backup. We can see that we've actually backed up this piece of malware many times before, so let's restore everything but that one little bit, the thing that caused all the problems, so we don't find ourselves in this recovery loop. All of that being managed through that single pane of glass. Caught myself on that one. Through that single pane of glass, it just means that the end user, and this is who we're supporting here at the end of the day, is that endpoint, and the end user isn't offline for as long. They can crack on and get back on with work. They can start delivering value back to their business. And at the end of the day, that's what all of this stuff is designed to do.
No, and you see it in the market, right? You can tell, and you don't have to name names, but you can tell the ones that have had a full cyber solution in place and a strategy around it, to the ones that haven't, right, within the news, ones that take a couple of years to get back up and running to some sort of level, to ones that can take 6 months. Like, it is a big difference, and everyone needs to have it. It's not an if anymore. It is a when you're going to get breached or attacked, and whether that's from human error or from hackers getting involved, like, it is an ever-changing landscape within our industry. I think kind of the next thing I want, and we've touched on cyber resilience apart, how do you see Acronis fitting into that? What do you class as cyber resilience?
So this isn't a direct quote because it's quite a lengthy little definition, but cyber resilience is seen as the ability to kind of detect, withstand, contain, but then also recover, bring back to full-blown working order, but then also learn how to adapt off the back of a cyber incident. And that's all like well and good. But for me, like, the key part of that whole thing is the resilience piece in cyber resilience. And I actually Googled, what's the definition of resilience? Because I think sometimes we sit back and we go, I know what that word means, but then we need, what's the actual and it's the ability to withstand and bounce back from illness, stress, hard times, and things like that. And that's well and good. Well, it's not ideal, but obviously these things happen. But then what, right? You can't just have the event, fix it, get everything back to clean, and then go, whoa, geez, let's hope we don't have to do that for a while. No, you've got to review what happened. What did we do well? What didn't we do well?
Yeah.
With the bits that we didn't do well, how can we do better? With the bits that we did do well, were they necessary? Can we still do those better? If it hadn't been like this, but it had been more like that, what more could we do? You know, have we got ourselves properly covered? Like, once normality has been restored for the great population who are actually using these machines in the background, the people that run the process, it's all well and good to say, hey, great, we've got a process and we went through it and it worked. Doesn't mean it's still going to be the right process in 6 months' time, a year's time. You know, how do we review that? How do we do that? And like, for me, I see that as a really great opportunity for our MSPs out there to be that kind of, and you use this word all the time, trusted advisor.
Yeah.
Right? But this is a real opportunity. You go, let's test this stuff, right? Let's not just hope that we don't need it. Let's test it. Let's like really put it through its paces, and let's see if it works.
No, I think one of the best things about being a cyber MSP, you have to be adaptable. You have to change. You have to, like you said, 6 months' time, something new will happen that you have to be ready for. So it's always about being adaptable. And I think that's one of the key things. Where would you say within our market is the biggest issue? What is the biggest, like, is it knowledge? Is it, you know, training? Where is the biggest problem within our industry at an MSP level, that you see?
I think this is a bit of an old one, but I think it's perception,
Yeah.
right? And I think this is but I think it's changing very quick as well. MSPs will often sit back and work with that smaller end of the market, right?
Yeah.
Like whether it be like a full MSP will probably be working with, I don't know, look, and I'm using real round numbers here, kind of 500 and below, like as a real MS kind of organizations are 500 and below. And then you've got your kind of specialist MSPs that will deliver, you know, managed security, will deliver managed backup, will deliver managed, you know, and they're kind of real point solutions. But what we're seeing is that their customers are normally bigger, whether they be financially bigger or manpower bigger or something. And then their customers are bigger again. Yeah. And you get to these top of the chain ones and they're going, well, we're ISO. So if you want to work with us, you need to be ISO 27001 certified. And then that just kind of cascades its way down. So these MSPs are now sitting there, and I've had a couple come up to us and say, oh, we've got to get ISO because we can't get any new clients. And are sitting there going, we need to go and do this. So there's that perception that because we're small, we don't need like this massive amount of security. And whilst technically, probably huge levels of security aren't necessary, you do have to have the relevant steps of security so it doesn't bankrupt you and impact kind kind of business performance.
Yeah.
But there are loads of things in there that you can still do in order to reach these certifications to make sure that you can still be relevant in the market.
No, that's fair enough. No, I think for me, it's always like selling into MSPs is always knowledge. Like it's the one big thing for me that I find. You have one or two people within the companies that are, you know, I would say technical, but even them to a level, it aren't. Like even them to a level when an incident happens, they're not necessarily ready for it. And then it's outside help from vendors, from everyone involved. It takes a massive team or a massive amount of work to get back to a normal environment. So I think that's always been one, you know, it's always going to be.
The other one there is resource, right?
Yeah,
And like that's not an MSP problem. I think that's a fairly global problem, right?
Yeah, very much so.
But we chat to our partners that we work with, and it's like, where are you with this? Like we talked about this project. Oh, this popped up, and then this happened, and this happened, and like that's had to be put on the back burner because of this, that, and the other. And it's like there's never enough people to do the work, right?
No, agreed.
And all businesses want every employee to do just that little bit more, that little bit more. And it's the world we live in, right? And it is like, you know, you got to accept these things. But when like big things happen and big red buttons are pushed and sirens are flashing and all of that stuff, and everyone's got to run around doing things, you know, people get pulled off certain projects and they get it to a point where it's done.
Yeah.
And they don't take that next step.
Yeah.
You know, how did we do? Let's review it. Let's do this. How do we manage our resource so we don't find ourselves in this problem where everything else is so massively impacted?
Yeah. No, I agree. I do agree. So where would you say then Acronis can help within that?
Look, we've got professional services.
Yeah.
We will absolutely jump on board. You know, we just need a little bit of information. We can provide a scope of work and then we can start working with you. And I've done with about 2 or 3 different partners at the moment.
Yeah.
Where they've sat back and they can see not only technical benefits by moving to Acronis, specifically from like a security perspective.
Yeah.
Technical benefits by moving to Acronis. They also see financial benefits by moving to Acronis. So they're double winning, right?
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
Great 2 tick. But the problem is they've got so many other projects going on that are also revenue generating. They can't do this one.
Yeah.
So I've done cost analysis and said, right, well, give us the details, put together a scope of work. They've seen the cost. And I've said, right, if we start this now, we can get it done in 2 months, which means you are going to start realizing this revenue sooner. So that means their commitment tier goes up. So the price of everything comes down. So their margin that they're making on existing stuff improves straight away. And the amount of time it takes them to then pay back the professional services. And, you know, at Acronis, we're pretty good at kind of making things financially viable for people.
Yeah.
You know, far outweighs the cost of waiting and not realizing this.
I think professional services at Acronis is something that's not talked about at all. Like it's very rare that
you'd be on the phone call with me then.
I was going to say, I would say the conversations at a partner level, like that, it's not very spoken about because a lot of people, especially at an MSP, they'd like to offer that service out themselves, right? Like it's where they make a lot of their profit. What sort of professional services do Acronis offer? Like what would, just to say a base 3 or 4 that Acronis could offer, you know, to most MSPs who are looking to get up and running?
Well, look, we'll do the delivery. So the install and delivery of all the different services that we do, right? So whether that be EDR, XDR, getting MDR set up, you know, I'm actually spoken to a handful of partners that want to set up their own SOC.
Yeah.
And the obvious first question is, why would you want to do that? And then we kind of have that conversation to look at how, you know, doing those types of things. But migration from one solution to the other, you know, is absolutely what we can do. And whilst I understand it's something that partners want to deliver themselves because it's a good little one-off bit of revenue for them, you know, looking at that bigger piece, the cost of waiting and all these other bits and pieces. Yeah. And at the end of the day, and I say this to a lot of partners, right? Your customer shouldn't care what's under the hood driving this thing, right? They're paying for, in an EDR perspective, an EDR solution. They're looking for security at that endpoint. Whether you use Acronis or something different, they shouldn't care. So let us go and push it out, and they should be none the wiser. If they walk in on a Monday morning and their laptop or their PC still turns on and works, and they can work the same way they always did,
then it's a win no matter what, right?
That's the sign of a successful project.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with you. So we're going to talk about something that you necessarily don't want to talk about, as in backup. Yeah, sorry. When backup was always a afterthought, right? In terms of the industry, people were happy to use Microsoft's 30-day policy, right? When would you say the biggest change, and when did it become such an important part of a cybersecurity solution?
I think we've seen it more and more as regulation has changed
Yeah.
and driven probably the more sensible and correct types of behaviors. I think the problem is a lot of backup is seen as I've said this a handful of times, right? I don't believe in selling backup solutions. I believe in selling restore solutions, right? Because anyone can take a backup.
Yeah.
I've sold loads of backup solutions in my time back in that LTO tape days. Not all of them were great restore solutions. So you need to make sure that you're investing in a proper restore solution. I think people are starting to become more aware and taking it more seriously that, not all systems are created equal.
Yeah.
When I was talking to partners years ago about disaster recovery, we'd say, all right, let's look at your thing. And they go, well, we need 4 hours for everything. It's just like, okay, well, what about this payroll server?
Yeah.
Because you kind of really only need that once a month. So does that also need the 4 hour kind of RPO, RTO that everything else has got? If it's the 15th and pay's not due to the 31st. So I think people are becoming a bit more aware and a bit more kind of sensible about, right, what does each actual individual system need? How does that need to be tiered? And actually, do we need to go this far back? And why do we need to go this far back? Or should we just archive it? So backup is a big, broad brush term.
Definitely. But
it can mean so much to so many different people. So, backup is great. Backup is important. Like I said at the beginning, it's that foundation for so much. But what's the cost of the data back then? And how do we need to maintain that? Because we'll always need to maintain it.
Yeah, no, I agree. So coming into kind of the future and part of things that Acronis are looking to do, you've recently recently launched Cyberframe. How is that going to change Acronis's outlook? How are people going to look at Acronis differently to what's already out in the market?
I think it goes back to what we were talking about before about kind of organically growing these solutions and building out a portfolio, and Acronis wanting to kind of touch and be the kind of backbone of the delivery arm of many managed services, of all our managed service providers. If you distill Cyberframe down to its absolute basic element, all our customers are already using it.
Okay.
Right? What the console is built on, what all the services are being delivered on. Essentially, it's the exact same platform, right? We're just giving our partners the opportunity to monetize that, to push it out. Look, IaaS isn't going away.
No, of course.
And there are so many options on the market.
Yeah.
But one thing in my unnecessarily long history in sales I've learned is that if stuff isn't simple, people aren't going to want to understand it to then go and buy it. And the great thing is Cyberframe's licensing system is simple. So you can get a system up and running quick. You know exactly how much it's going to cost. It comes with its security, backup, DR, all of management, all already bundled into it. So you don't have to do anything. And the next great thing, licensing's included.
Yeah, no, it is.
Next great thing is there's no ingress and egress costs of data going in and out, right? So no unnecessary bills, no hidden costs, no hidden fees. It's transparent. It's simple. It's easy.
Yeah.
And it's quick.
No, it's something that is, well, I'd say it's going to change massively the kind of perception of Acronis. I've seen it already with a lot of customers taking it on board just from a cost effective way. Like some of my customers are reducing their costs by 25% using it already, which is fantastic. Kind of the last thing I want to kind of go into, and Acronis have always had a history with AI, but what are the things coming? We've seen a lot of kind of releases around AI, what is Acronis's plan, and where are Acronis fitting into that part of the market?
Look, AI is everything these days, right? AI is absolutely everything. There's the obvious ones, like our Gen AI security, which is designed to help monitor and manage the different AI solutions that everyone could be using, right? I used this example the other day, right? I was chatting to a partner, and I said, "What are you guys doing about AI?" And they said, "Well, we've got this policy. People have read it and they've had to sign it." I said, "Okay, and how's that working for you?" "I don't know." Okay, well, that's not great, is it? Right? Because, and I use this example. It was really frustrating that I used this example. I use the example of, like, I'll drive down the motorway, and I'll be aware of what the speed limit is. But if there's not a speed camera, I may or may not be kind of worried too much about what that speed policy has to say, right? I might go and do what I want to do. And there's loads of drivers that are out there. The frustrating thing about that analogy I used was 2 weeks later, I got a speeding ticket, not on the motorway though. I was really frustrated about that. It's the first one in 20 years. So we've got that from that, and that's looking at making sure that people are using a single uniformed AI thing across the business, solution across the business. It's looking at making sure PII is not getting pumped up into these things, and potentially, what happens to this data once it gets pumped up. So we're making sure that stuff's not getting leaked, and also kind of malicious injections through Gen AI as well. But it doesn't. I mean, that's the obvious one. But there's so much more that's happening, right? So there's some basic workflows that we're creating in there in order to allow people to do what they want. From a remote management and monitoring perspective, we've kind of got AI assist in there to sit back and say, well, we've had a quick look at the device and this is what we think you need to do from a service desk perspective in order to try and chunk that through. And, like, again, workflows then can come into that to help take those basic problems, issues off the service desk so that the engineers are freed up to either do more complex service desk issues or maybe even go and do project work, which is, again, revenue generating. AI is not going anywhere, right? Of course. We're making sure that people are driving AI and making sure we've got the right people to drive what that AI stuff should look like. But it's going to become fundamental. Sorry, it is fundamental in everything that we do these days. And it's not a case of you just can't get away from it. No, we're going to lean into it, and we're going to lean into it hard, right?
No, I think you do find that. And I think that is the biggest thing. Like, I don't think it's necessarily taken off within our market, like, massively yet. It's still, everyone's still learning and everyone's still trying to come to terms with it. But it like you said, it's fundamental now. Like, it is. Everyone needs to be prepared for what it's going to look like. And it's not like we're talking about like Terminator and stuff like that. And we're talking about how it helps everyday solutions, how it helps everyday workflows, stuff like that, rather than necessarily the end of the world sort of thing down the line. And
look, it's not going to take people's jobs away.
Oh, of course,
it's going to allow people to do that bit more that we were talking about at the beginning. But look, using the AI effectively and intelligently. So you can't drive AI without AI. And what I mean by that is you can't drive artificial intelligence unless you have actual intelligence. So you've got to have, you surround yourself with the right people and you start using these tools effectively. It's going to help you flourish. And, we are seeing that being added into our solution stack all the time. And there's no change to the cost structure. You're just getting all these great new features for free.
No, sounds good. Well, thank you for joining today, Peter. And if anyone would like to hear from myself, from Peter, if you want to get in touch and hear more about Acronis, then reach out to myself or your Ingram Acronis account manager, or reach out to Peter directly. Thank you again today, Peter. And look forward to hearing you again.
Thanks for having us.